Imagine healing with nothing but a vibration. A simple hum, a very specific frequency. For almost 100 years, this idea has kind of lived out on the fringes of science, full of wild claims and some pretty fascinating characters. But what if I told you that today, right now, it's actually becoming a clinical reality?
So that's the big question for us today. Can a simple vibration really heal disease? We're about to go on a journey, starting way back with the speculative theories of the 1930s and bringing it all the way forward to FDA-approved cancer therapies in 2026. We're going to see how the science of frequency medicine evolved from this, fringe concept into a really powerful clinical tool.
Okay, let's just dive right into the core of it. On one side, you have these experimental vibration machines from the 1930s. They were built on this idea of shattering germs with a special frequency. Then on the other side, you have FDA-approved bioelectromagnetic therapy, which is based on rock-solid clinical trials. The difference is absolutely night and day. And that contrast, that's our story. To really understand how we got to where we are today, we've got to rewind. Let's go back to the beginning, to the pioneers who first chased this incredible idea of finding a mortal rate for every single disease.
So, back in the 30s, you had a guy named Royal Raymond Rife, and he was convinced every germ had a deadly frequency. A decade later, in the 40s, Wilhelm Reich started talking about this biological life force he called organ energy. But what's really fascinating is that the basic physics for all this was already being laid down. Albert Einstein's work on the photoelectric effect had already shown that, energy could in fact create physical change in matter.
Rife's whole thing was this mortal oscillatory rate. His theory was basically that if you could find a pathogen's unique resonant frequency, you could just vibrate it to death. Think of an opera singer shattering a wine glass with just their voice. It's a really compelling idea, right? But it was an idea that just didn't have the scientific proof to back it up.
Now, Wilhelm Reich's theory, it was a bit more mystical. He came up with this idea of a universal life force called orgone energy. For Reich, getting sick wasn't about germs you needed to shatter. It was about blockages in this energy flow. He thought you just needed to unstick that energy to get healthy again.
So, for decades, these ideas just kind of sat out there on the fringe. But then came this huge scientific shift, a fundamental change in how we even thought about frequency. We moved away from the idea of shattering things and into the science of supporting the body.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. The old model was all about destruction, shatter, disintegrate, vibrate to death. But the modern science, it's all about restoration and really precise intervention, supporting cellular energy, guiding brainwaves into helpful states, and physically disrupting how cancer cells divide. It's a completely different mindset, a totally different mechanism.
And as our source material puts it, and this is the key, modern frequency therapy works through metabolic stimulation or physical disruption of mitosis, not mortal oscillatory rate of pathogens, as Royal Rife originally proposed. That sentence right there, that's the crucial point separating the old theories from the new science.
So what does this support model actually look like in practice? Well, we're talking about things like using tiny microcurrents that can boost cellular energy, that's ATP, by up to 500% to help you heal faster, or using a 40 Hz sound to literally activate the brain's waste clearance system. See, it's all about working with the body's systems, not just attacking invaders from the outside.
All right, so how are these principles actually being used by doctors today? Well, this brings us into the modern clinic and to this fascinating application that works almost like a digital stethoscope. The technique is called frequency-specific microcurrent, or FSM for short. What it does is use these incredibly tiny currents. We're talking currents similar to what your body produces all on its own, to target specific tissues and conditions. It's especially useful for things like pain relief and speeding up healing. And this is where that digital stethoscope idea really comes to life. FSM can actually be used for diagnosis. So a clinician might apply a frequency for a problem they suspect, let's say inflammation. Then they physically feel the tissue. If it instantly softens under their fingers, boom, they know they've found the right key for that specific lock. It's like getting a real-time answer directly from the body itself.
And this isn't just guesswork, There are specific, documented frequency pairings that clinicians use. For nerve pain, running 40 Hz on one channel and 396 on the other often causes an immediate drop in that burning sensation. For scar tissue, a totally different pair makes the tissue soft and pliable again. It's an incredible way to use the body's own response to figure out the true source of a problem.
This clinical work is amazing, no doubt. But what's the line that separates a cool therapeutic tool from validated medicine?
Well, that brings us to the FDA-approved era. This is the new standard of proof.
And here is the bottom line, the most crucial point. The gold standard that separates a wellness gadget from a true medical device is FDA approval. And you don't get that without rigorous, large-scale human clinical trials. There is absolutely no substitute for that level of evidence. Period. So let's look at a technology that actually made the cut. Tumor treating fields, or TT fields. Now, this has nothing to do with shattering anything. It's a non-invasive therapy that uses alternating electrical fields to physically get in the way of cancer cell division. It messes with key proteins that cancer cells need to multiply, while, and this is key, leaving healthy, non-dividing cells mostly alone. It's precise, it's physical, it's targeted interference.
And look, this is not science fiction. On February 12, 2026, the FDA approved the Optune Paxa device. It uses this exact technology to treat locally advanced pancreatic cancer. The Fringe idea has officially and finally entered the mainstream of oncology.
This table right here gives you the perfect framework to understand this entire landscape. An FDA-approved device like Optune is a highly regulated prescription-only medical device that has been proven in massive human trials. A modern Rife machine, on the other hand, is an unregulated consumer product based on a completely different theory with evidence that is mostly anecdotal. Understanding this distinction is everything.
Okay, wow, we have covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From 1930s theories all the way to 2026 FDA approvals. So let's wrap it up and summarize the key takeaways in a section we're calling Tuning the Body's Orchestra.
So what are the big lessons here? First, the mechanism, how it works, matters way more than some magic frequency. Second, that old destruction idea has evolved into precise, targeted disruption. Third, the modern support model is all about restoring the body's own energy and function. Fourth, and this is a big one, FDA approval is the bright, clear line between validated medicine and wellness tech. And finally, remember this, the biggest risk of unproven devices isn't usually that they'll hurt you, but that they'll distract you from care that actually works.
When you think about it, your body really is like an orchestra. Those early theories were like someone just fumbling around in the dark, trying to find the right notes. But now, science is finally learning to identify the precise, clinical frequencies that can actually restore harmony. So now that you can tell the difference between just noise and a true clinical note, how will you choose to tune it?